Utah. Thanks to those who download our talks as podcasts on iTunes. We invite your comments, correspondence, and feedback by emails at utahchristnas@gmail.com. We also have a website where there's a membership class. I'd like to thank those that have taken the membership class, become members. Couldn't do what we do without your help and support. Everything is inspired by the teachings of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Om Aganati Randasyam Ganagana Sarakya Chaksurim Militam Yena Tajmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yanubhutare Sayam Rupa Kiromyam Vedati Swaparantikam. I'd like to talk to you today on the subject that the Lord is obliged to His pure devotees. Every one of us has dreams in our heart, promises that we're standing on. Maybe we're hoping for a child to turn around, to get our health back again, to start a business, or to get out of debt. Deep down, you know that Krishna or God has spoken to your spirit, birthed it on the inside. But too often, because it takes a long time, because we run into unexpected difficulties and delays, we start to get a little negative. And we start thinking, oh, maybe I didn't get it right. Maybe it's not going to happen after all. But let me assure you with this verse from the Bhagavad Gita, Samoham, Krishna tells his friend and devotee Arjuna, Samoham sarvabhuteshu name dvesha stina priyaha ye bijanti tumam bhakta maye te teshu chapyaham. God, the Father of all living beings, says, naturally, expectedly, I'm equal to all living beings. I'm not partial to one as opposed to another. Just like a father loves all of his children equally. But then he goes on to say, Ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya. Those who render service to me in bhakti, in love and devotion. He says, they are a friend. They are in me, and I am a friend to them. It's very plain from the statement of the Lord here that those who render devotional service to Him in what we call bhakti are very, very especially dear to Him over and above the equal regard with which He has for all of His other sons. For those who are devoted to Him, and we awaken our devotion, at least initially, by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Sipram Bhavati Dharma Sasip Chantim Nagachi Konte Apradit Name Bhakti Pranasati. Krishna tells Arjuna, don't hide this. Don't hide this. What I'm telling you, shout it from the rooftops. Go on Facebook. Pick up your cell phone. Put a billboard on I-15. Tell it boldly, Arjuna, Name Bhaktya Pranasati. My devotee never perishes. I promise him or her my personal protection. And Prabhupada writes in the purport to this verse, an advanced Vaishnava, or follower of Krishna, never doubts the word of the Lord. And there's many instances of this in our scripture. In the Srimad Bhagavatam is described when the gods and the demons were churning the ocean of milk in order to get nectar. There were many byproducts that came out of this churning. One of those byproducts was a unique tree called the Parijata tree. And as soon as it appeared, Lord Indra, the lord of the heavenly planets, the lord of basically rainfall, grabbed that tree and took it to his city and planted it in his particular gardens called Indrapuri. After that, Indra was so proud that he had the only Parijata tree in the entire universe, lower, middle, or upper planetary systems. Now there's a transcendental traveler named Narada Muni who goes freely amongst the material and the spiritual worlds. So one day he picked one of the flowers and he brought it down to earth to the palace of Krishna in Dwarka and gave it to Krishna's queen, Satyabhama. Satyabhama smelled the unique aroma of this Parijata flower and she couldn't stop thinking about it. And she asked Narada, I've never seen a flower like this. Its fragrance is so intoxicating. Where did you get it? Narada said, I got it in the garden of King Indra up in the heavenly planets. Satyabhama wanted not only the flower, but she wanted a tree for her own. She thought, Krishna is the Lord of millions and millions of universes. He makes unlimited Indras. If Indra has a Parijata tree, why shouldn't Krishna have a tree? And I don't know if you know anything about Narada Muni, but he's kind of a stirrer. You know, when I lived in Australia for 5 years, someone caused trouble. We called him a stirrer. Well, Narada Muni is famous for being a stirrer. So he said, Satyabhama, he said, why don't you tell Krishna to get you a tree? And then he went to Indra. And without giving so many details, he said, Indra, I heard that there's some people on earth that would like to steal your Parijata tree. So you better be on your guard. Indra says, who? Who's in it? He says, I can't tell you who, but you better be vigilant. So Krishna is always willing to indulge, what to speak of protecting his devotees for mortal danger and threats and enemies. In this case, he's indulging a whim of his devoted wife, Satyabhama. So he called Garuda, his bird carrier. He got Satyabhama, and the three of them went flying up to the heavenly planets. He got the Parijata tree. Indra saw the theft taking place. He was enraged. There was a huge battle that took place, and Indra was defeated handily. That's the way that the Parijata tree came down to earth the first time. It's called various names, and one of the names is the wish-fulfilling Kalpavriksha. It's said to be among those trees. You just have to ask the tree for anything in the service of the Lord, and it will give you whatever paraphernalia you need to serve the Lord. And in certain parts of India, newly married couples are advised to worship this tree as part of the marriage ceremony and seek blessings from the tree to ensure eternal love and marital bliss. The flowers of this tree, interestingly enough, only bloom at night, and they fall on the ground without any external wind or force causing it. Now, normally if a flower falls on the ground, you can't pick it up and offer it to Lord Krishna. But this flower is the exception. You can pick up the Parijata flowers from the ground and offer them to Krishna. And they usually are most fragrant and aromatic only during the night, and therefore they're also known as night jasmine. So to give favor to his pure devotee Satyabhama, Krishna flew on Garuda to the heavenly planets, had a big fight with Lord Indra in order to get her Parijata tree. So sometimes in our life also, we have a God-centered dream, we have a wish that we cherish, but it may be taking too long to fulfill. It's proving too difficult. Our mind is starting to think it's over. Our emotions are starting to feel, no way. The circumstances look impossible. Now, many people don't see God or Krishna's best because they get discouraged and give up too soon. But our message is that just because you don't see anything happening doesn't mean that Krishna or God is not working behind the scenes on your behalf. We just have to do our part and trust in him, though it looks impossible, not to let our minds or our emotions or other people talk us out of our God-centered dreams. In the due season, at the right time, he will bring it to pass. Why? Because God is faithful. Faithful yesterday, faithful today, and faithful tomorrow. It may not happen in the way we expect it. It may not happen on our timetable, but our declaration is that God will not disappoint you. Let that sink down on the inside. Krishna is saying to you tonight, I will not fail you. Everything is going to work out. I'm in complete control. I know the medical report. I see your balance sheet. I know the people who are criticizing you and coming against you. I know how big your dreams are. Now, hear me clearly. I will not fail you. He'll always make a way, even though it looks to us as if there is no way. He will vindicate past wrongs. He will pay you back for unfair situations. He will fulfill the innermost desires of your heart. Hudson Taylor was the son of a cobbler in a London slum. Some or other he got converted to Christianity. and he wanted to do a mission. So he got down on his knees and he prayed, God, send me as a missionary to that part of the world where everybody says it's impossible. That way, if I succeed, I'll know it wasn't my own efforts, but it was the grace of God. The answer he got was China. In China in those days, there was an imperial edict. Any Chinese national who heard anyone preaching even a word of Christianity had complete freedom to take out their sword and cut that person down on the spot, right in the public street. So Hudson Taylor said, that's for me. He started learning Chinese in a London hovel. He traveled overland to China. It took him many, many months. And he succeeded in establishing the most successful God-centered mission in the country of China. And on his wall, he had a plaque with 2 words of God on it, 2 names of God. One was Ebenezer, and the other was Jehovah Jireh. Ebenezer means hitherto the Lord has helped us, and Jehovah Jireh means from here on out the Lord will provide. One looked back and the other looked forward. One reminded him of God's faithfulness in the past, and the other of God's assurances to continue in the future. Another instance, if you know the Mahabharata, Queen Kunti had 5 sons who were harassed and disenfranchised by the evil-minded Duryodhana. They were sent into exile for 13 years, and when they came out of exile, their enemies amassed a huge army to annihilate them. There were altogether on this battlefield of Kurukshetra 3.9 million soldiers, and their enemies had 11 divisions. The pious sons of Kunti, the Pandavas, only had 7 divisions. They'd been in the forest eating roots and herbs for 13 years. Their enemies had been working out at Vasa Fitness, eating protein shakes, taking steroids, making alliances. They had champions like Bhisma, Karna, Ashwatthama, Dronacharya. I mean, in the natural, the Pandavas didn't stand a chance. But Kunti knew that Krishna was the supreme personality of Godhead. If Krishna is for you, it doesn't matter who's against you. And so she went to Krishna and said, Krishna, can I get the boon from you? My 5 sons, Arjuna, Yudhisthira, Bhima, Nakula, and Sahadev, will survive this upcoming war. And later on, after the war was over, she said, one day the sun may grow cold, the moon may grow hot, but Krishna, God, who created millions and millions of universes, will never break his promises to his devotees. In fact, Krishna, prior to the battle, he made a promise that he would enter only as a non-combatant, as a chariot driver of Arjuna. Krishna said, I will not pick up any weapon against either side. But during the battle, Bhisma, the great champion of the Kauravas, he said that either Krishna will break his promise tomorrow or I will kill Arjuna. So on that day, Bhisma cut the bowstring of Arjuna. He cut the bow of Arjuna with his arrows. He cut the flag from Arjuna. He cut the horses from the chariot. He cut the wheels off of the chariot. And Arjuna was there, helpless, like a lamb for slaughter. Krishna broke his own promise not to pick up weapons, to save his devotee. Later on, at the time of his leaving his body, Bhisma, who was a great devotee, he happened to be on the other side. That's a whole other story. But he recalled Krishna, Shwanigamam upahayam atritam, ritam adikarto abluto ratastad vite charana bhyaksharigur harim ibahantum ibam gato tariyam. Fulfilling my desire to see the Lord break his promise and sacrificing his own good word to save his devotee Arjuna, Krishna got down from the chariot, took up the broken wheel of the chariot, and ran towards me hurriedly, harimi bahantami bamgato, just like a lion rushes to kill an elephant. And Bhisma had this meditation at the time of leaving his body. Lord Krishna had promised not to fight, But Bhisma, in order to break the Lord's own promise, attacked Arjuna in such a vigorous way that he was obliged to take up that chariot wheel and rush at him in order to protect Arjuna. The Lord didn't mind breaking his own promise in order to protect his devotee. Only of the 3.9 million soldiers, only 12 survived, if you count Krishna. The 5 Pandavas, Satyaki, Ashwatthama, Kripachara, Yutsa, Vrishiketu, Kritavarma, and of course, Krishna. Prabhupada says in this connection, in a purport, there's a verse, Deha Patrakalatadishu, Atmasenishu. We're all looking for protection. We're all looking for special favors. Who can protect us? When we're children, our mother and our father are there. But eventually our mother and father pass away. That's the nature of this body. It's impermanent. It cannot stay. So Prabhupada says, Deha Patrakalatadishu. Deha means husband. Kalatra means wife. Patra means children. On one level or another, we're all thinking that my wife will protect me at the time of death. My children will protect me at the time of death. My soldiers, I've got my army against death. I'm the general, my wife is the colonel, my oldest son is the sergeant, my other sons are the corporals, and what do they call, the privates. And when death comes, some or other, illogically, against all experience and all reason, we think that these fallible soldiers will protect me at the time of death. And if they're not enough, we expand. We try to create a dynasty with sons and grandsons and grandfathers and father-in-laws and brother and society, friendship and love. Everybody is thinking, my nation, my community. No, we're here tonight to tell you, nothing can save you. Nothing that's fallible can save you. They're all temporary. They come and go. One who is too much attached to this body, to friendship, love, and family, Prabhupada says, is pramata, crazy, a madman. Why? Because he doesn't see what is obvious. My father has died, his father has died, his father has died. When I was a child, my father was there giving me protection, but my father died. Now, who is going to give me protection? Who is going to? When I was a child, my mother was there. Now my mother is gone. Who is going to give me protection? I was in a family. I was a member of a country. I had sons, daughters, and wife, but none of them are capable of protecting. And just like a forlorn child, when he thinks that his mother and father are lost and he has no one to stand up for him, he cries. He's in despair. Where is my mother? Where is my father? Similarly, we're all full of fear and anxiety because we're counting on those to save us who cannot even save themselves. Krishna is saying to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, Saranagati, Sarvadharmampari, surrender to me. I am your creator. I am your father. I am your well-wishing friend. I am capable and willing to give you protection. And Prabhupada says, even if you work in the service of some ordinary man, will he not give you protection to the best of his ability? Is it not natural? So don't you think that if you work in bhakti for Krishna or God, that God then will not give you protection? Prabhupada says, because we have no faith. Therefore, we're seeking protection elsewhere. Krishna is aham sarvasya prabhavo. From him come all material and all spiritual world. He's actually giving us protection already. On the freeway, coming and going, getting up, going to work. Who do you think gives us the breath of life? By whose sanction do we live day after day after day after day in this very, very dangerous world? There's danger practically at every step. So who is already giving us protection? Imagine the protection that's there if you step up into bhakti, into the middle of what God wants for your life. Nobody else is willing or capable of giving us protection, only Krishna. And therefore he says, give up all varieties of duties, give up all religious affiliations, and graduate to the level of pure devotional service. Don't have any hesitations or scruples or anxieties. Aham tam savai papebhyo. I will protect you from any negative reactions. Konteya pratidhyamihi. Declare it boldly, Arjuna. One who seeks my protection is never disappointed, is never vanquished. So Prabhupada finishes his purport, concluding, so the best thing is to take to Krishna consciousness, fully surrender to the Lord, and you'll be protected. Otherwise, there is no other way of being protected. Another story of Krishna's favor to his devotees. Born out of a fire sacrifice, born from a fire sacrifice that a king named Draupadi did, was a brother and a sister. The brother was Dristadumna. The sister was named Draupadi. The king was Draupada, so his daughter was Draupadi. And she was so Krishna-colored. She was so dark-complected at the time of birth that they called her as Krishna. She was an associate of the Lord from previous lives, an expansion of Radha and the goddess of fortune. So both her father, Draupada, and Draupadi wanted her to marry Krishna. But Krishna said, it's a special mission that I have for you in this particular incarnation. It is because of your being insulted that the whole Kurukshetra war will flare up, and then this will be the pretext to rid the world of all the demoniac kings who are overburdening Mother Earth. So I don't want you to marry me. I want you to marry Arjuna. Arjuna is a part of me. He's my representative. He's my servant. You marry me, and then when the Kauravas insult you by trying to disrobe you in the public assembly, then we'll have the setting in which we can then clear out all the demonic elements in the world. And it said that Krishna and Draupadi, they shared almost telepathy. Krishna was like Sakha, which is the male friend, and Draupadi was Saki, which is the female friend. They had a deep understanding of each other's thought patterns, commitments, joys, challenges in life. They connected telepathetically. And once, the story goes, Krishna suffered a nick in his finger from handling his razor-sharp Sudarshan chakra. And it is said at that time, Krishna's sister, Subhadra, went running through the Dwarka palace. Where's the first aid kit? Where's the methiolet? Where's the iodine? Where's the gauze? Where's the tape? Whereas Draupadi ripped off a piece of her very expensive sari and immediately wrapped Krishna's finger and used it as a bandage for him. Krishna returned the favor when Draupadi was in danger of being made naked. Her sari was being pulled off in public in front of all the warriors of the Caru dynasty. And due to a bet, her 5 powerful husbands sat on one side and could not lift a finger to save her. But Krishna remembered that Draupadi had bandaged his finger. And so at that time that Dusasana was pulling off her sari, Krishna appeared in a form that was unseen to everybody else except Draupadi could see. And as much sari as Dusasana pulled off on the one side, Krishna doled out on the other side until Dusasana just collapsed in exhaustion. Krishna's commitment to Draupadi's welfare remained throughout the entire epic of the Mahabharata. Even in the Battle of Kurukshetra, one of the reasons why Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, accepted the role of a chariot. You can imagine in the war field, the role of a chariot driver is not very glorious. He's covered with blood. There's dust everywhere, choking, cloying atmosphere. And in the thick of battle, Arjuna is not able to say, Lord of Lords, King of Kings, Creator, Maintainer, Destroyer, please turn left if you don't mind. Left! Right! Stop! Krishna accepted all that, at least in part because he was guarding Arjuna, Draupadi's husband, Arjuna, protecting the love interest of his Saki, his god sister. Continuing, Prabhupada says, people are so mad. They think that friends, relatives, fallible soldiers will give them protection. They don't see that everything is destined to be annihilated. So many friends, father, uncle, grandfather, great-father, teachers, they all have died or they will die. So who can give me protection? And we're only thinking of protection in terms of this body, which is eminently fallible. We don't even understand that within this body there's an eternal spirit soul, part and parcel of God. When we come to the understanding of the soul and seeking to have the soul protected from repeated birth, death, disease, and old age, that is a state of knowledge called Atma Tattva. And one is said not to even have human consciousness until one comes to the level of inquiring, who am I? Where do I come from? And what is the purpose of life? Otherwise, no one can give me protection. Prabhupada gives the example like airplanes. They have the air show, I think, at Hill Air Force Base, if I'm not mistaken. And those jets, they fly, it's almost supernatural how they seem to be coordinated. You know, one wingtip is just inches from another wingtip. And they're flying at, 1,000 miles an hour. It seems almost as if they're tied together. But if one of the pilot's plane's engine starts failing, there's nothing the other pilots can do for him. He can be surrounded by 100 or 1,000 planes, but he will have to fly his own plane. If he wants protection, he will have to see to his own protection. He can't look to the plane to the left of him or the right of him, to his wife, to his family, to his father, his grandfather. He has to look to his own strength and to trust his own discretion as far as protection is concerned. That's when one should look to Krishna, who is Suridam Sarvabhutanam, the seed-giving Father and the well-wishing friend of all living entities. If I want to protect myself and my loved ones from the onslaughts of the stringent laws of material nature, then I will have to take protection from the Supreme Lord Krishna. Otherwise, nothing else can give me protection. In the country of Armenia, in 1988, Samuel and Daniel sent their young son, Armon, off to school, as they did every day. And as he did every day, Samuel squatted down before his young son, looked him right in the eye, and he said, Armon, have a good day at school. And remember, no matter what, I'll always be there for you. They hugged, and his boy ran off to school. About 11 o'clock that morning, a powerful earthquake rocked Armenia, affected 45% of the country. 25,000 people died. Samuel grabbed his coat and headed for the schoolyard. When he reached the area, what he saw brought tears to his eyes. Other parents were standing around, tears pouring down their cheeks. Samuel found the place where Armon's classroom used to be and began to pull rubble off of the pile. He grabbed rocks and put them to one side, pieces of wood to the other side, bricks. The parents said, what are you doing? I'm digging for my son. And then the parents said, but you're just going to make things worse. The building is unstable. You're going to destabilize it. They actually tried to pull Samuel away from his work, but he shrugged them off, set his jaw, kept on working. And as time wore on, the parents, one by one, left. A firefighter came up in the evening. He also physically tried to pull Samuel from the rubble. Samuel looked at him and said, why don't you help me? The firefighter left, and Samuel kept digging. All through the night and into the next day, he continued. Parents came, started placing pictures of their children, flowers, writings, cards. Samuel just kept working, beam after beam, brick after brick, rock after rock, till about 36 hours later, in the middle of the afternoon of the next day, he wasn't sure, but he thought he heard a small cry from deep within the rubble. Papa. He listened more carefully, and sure enough, he heard it again. Papa. He redoubled his efforts. He started to then furiously dig. And finally, he could see his son Armand down there. And he said, come on out, son. And Armand said, no. Let the other kids come out first, because I know that you'll get me. Child after child emerged until finally little Armand appeared. Samuel took him in his arms, and Armand said, "Throughout the long, dark night, I told the other kids not to worry because you told me that you'd always be there for me." 14 children were saved that day because Samuel was true to his word. Similarly, like little Armand, our attitude towards the Lord should be, "I know, Lord, you will never fail me. It may not look good now, but I believe that one day I'll look back and understand how you use that situation to my advantage." And isn't faith ultimately all about trusting? Getting to know that down deep, God has your best interests at heart. Too many people, would you agree with me, if they don't get the promotion, if they don't qualify for the new home, if they don't have the baby, instead of believing that the Lord has something better in store for them, they get all down and hopeless and depressed, as a result of which they never see the promise come to pass. The words of the Lord will override all negative declarations and statements. The words of the Lord will roll back all dangers. It is said that what God says is true, and only what God says is true. It's men who are liars. God wills it, and instantaneously, whatever it is he wills, suns, universes, planets, stars, enemies, is established as an immediate, irrevocable fact. We will. And there's so many obstacles. There's such a great lapse of time. There's so many delays. There's so many difficulties. There's so many dead ends. We may lose our determination, but God wills it. Let there be light. He spoke worlds into existence. All he needs to do to protect you from the deepest darkness, from the greatest enemies, is simply speak, and you're protected. You're covered and surrounded by an invisible shield. We may not have the knowledge, we may not have the power, but if we simply have bhakti, simple childlike trust in God, we have nothing to fear. We got to believe in Krishna in spite of how we feel, in spite of what our mind is telling us, in spite of what logic is saying, in spite of what the critics are saying. I'm going to keep acting on what I know is true. And the words of Krishna or God are the only infallible, eternal truth. I'm not going to be moved by what I see. I'm not going to be discouraged by what I don't see. I'm not going to give up because it takes a long time. Why? Because Krishna is 100% reliable 100% of the time. Krishna always has the final say. Our encouragement is come back to that place of peace. Quit living worried and stressed out, wondering if it's going to happen. Krishna has you in the palm of his hand. He has not failed you in the past, and he's not going to start now. Dare to trust him. He'll give you strength for every battle, wisdom for every decision, peace in the midst of everything. We're talking about unshakable faith. Faith that Krishna will vindicate past wrongs. Faith that Krishna will pay you back for unfair situations. Faith that Krishna will fulfill the innermost desires of your heart. One last story before we wind up. An Afro-American girl named Vanetta Flowers. Early on, age of 13 or 14, people recognized her speed and athletic ability. They said, you should try out for the Olympics. So from a very early age, she practiced sprinting and long jumping. She went to the Olympic trials in 1996 and just barely missed qualifying. She had to make a decision. I've already spent so many years. Should I invest another 4 years and try again for the 2000 Olympics? And she decided she'd do it every day for 4 years. She trained 6-8 hours a day. She was in the best shape of her life in 2002. She made her last try for the Olympic team. She missed out by 1/100th of a second. She didn't know what to do. 15 years she'd invested. A couple weeks later, her husband, who was also an Olympian, came back from the gym. He said, Vanetta, I saw a poster in the gym. It said, continue your Olympic dream by trying out for the bobsled. She says, say what? Bobsled. Bobsled. What's a bobsled? We don't have any bobsleds in Georgia. But she decided, and it also said, we're looking especially for long jumpers and sprinters. So she tried out. She said the first time she tried out, she said it was like she was put into a trash can and rolled down a mountain. In 2002, after 17 years of Olympic training, Vanetta Flowers became the first Afro-American and the only Afro-American woman to win gold in the Winter Olympics. We all come to points in our lives when we ask the question, is it worth it? Because your plan didn't work out, the business went under, your loved ones didn't make it, doesn't mean that God isn't in control. You have to come back to that place of peace and refuse to live your life negative and discouraged. Lord, I trust that you know what you're doing, and in due season, you will bring every promise to fulfillment. Is it worth treating this person right, even when they're treating me wrong? Is it worth it pursuing dreams when I've had so many setbacks? Is it worth it to keep trying to overcome this addiction, even though I've failed so many times? If you will look up with your eyes of faith, you will see your Heavenly Father up there with a big smile in your cheering section. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And when those voices come saying, stop, give up, throw in the towel, you're wasting your time, look up. Use your imagination to see Krishna up above saying, that's my boy, that's my girl. You're doing good. I believe in you. Don't stop. I have supported you in the past, and I assure you of my support in the future. I will never fail you. Our message tonight is to put every negative thought aside, shake off every disappointment, knowing that if Krishna is for you, who dare be against you? If Krishna is saying yes, it doesn't matter who else is saying no. Krishna has the final say. He will stand by his devotees through thick and thin. He will break his own promises to keep his devotees safe. He will bring his devotees unscathed out of the fire of battle. He will crown the efforts of his devotees with victory. Now, why don't you listen to him? He's saying to you tonight, Sarva Dharman Prikyaga, surrender fully to me. Have no fear. I will protect you in this life, and next life I will bring you back to home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. We're going to do 15 minutes of chanting before going downstairs for the meal. And if you have any questions, you can stay up here rather than going down right away and ask any of us. Or we'll circulate around the tables and ask any questions if you have at that time. The fact that we haven't opened up for questions doesn't mean that we don't love questions. It just means we want to keep a very condensed program for those who are coming for the first time. So you're invited to stand up, stretch, use the space to social distance, and Indu will lead us in a little bit of the chanting.